Be reasonable in presenting your case, because as an advocate, the most important thing I feel you have is your credibility.
Hello and welcome back to myArbitration. Today we'll be speaking with John Fellis and Rebeca Mosquera, both of them amongst the most charismatic people I've ever met. We will be speaking with them about the ICC conference that's happening right now here in Miami and about diversity.
Hi Victoria, how are you?
Hi Rebecca, hi.
So nice to be here with you in Miami.
Yes, so nice for you to have us.
I know, of all places. And I am most honored that you were going to be able to meet John, finally.
I'm so excited. Hello again,
Hi
it's
again.
so good to see you.
I worked with John for a number of years at Hughes Cover and Reed, and he's a fantastic person and professional, and I'm just so happy that, to make this introduction.
Thank you so much for making that.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited. Rebecca told me so much about you and about your working relationship, so I'm really interested to speak with you about a few things.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here.
Rebecca told me that you have a lot to share about diversity and the promotion of diversity. Can I ask you, why is diversity a cause that's important to you?
It's because I see so many different people in life who are very talented and don't always get an opportunity to develop their talents in a way that would make sense for them. And why that matters to me, perhaps a psychologist might be able to give you a better answer than I can, but I do see it. I've seen it throughout my life, and it's so therefore, whenever having gotten to a relatively senior position in my field, whenever I see people I can help, I try to make an effort to help. Well, how you convince people, I think I have noticed a shift since I've, started practicing law over 30 years ago. I think people, and I work in New York City. New York City is a relatively liberal place to work, and law firms in New York City are generally liberal places. Not all. And I've always seen actually, diversity being promoted. At the same time, I have seen, despite efforts, it's not simply lip service. I think people genuinely would like to have a more diverse workplace. But even after 30 years, the numbers don't shift all that much. If you use partnership as a proxy for whether you have a successful, diverse culture in your law firm, I think there are probably more women partners now than there were 30 years ago, but it's not a lot more. And when you think that starting classes at law firms tend to be 50% men, 50% women, more or less. Law school classes in the United States tend to be 50% women, 50% men. By the time you get to partnership, that breakdown is not there. You don't have, in most partnerships, 50% men and 50% women. It tends to be 10, 20, maybe if you're lucky, 30% women. But it doesn't correspond to where people start out.
And is that something that, something that should change? And if so, how can we change that?
Well, it absolutely should change. Part of the issue is structural within the terms of society, but part of it is something we can do ourselves, in law firms. I think it's just important, I just, for example, I had a woman associate who later became partner, you know, during the course of working with me, she had 3 kids, took maternity leave, and when each time she came back, I got her right involved again, right in, you know, and I think what I've noticed is a lot of women's careers can flounder in that process, and I think everyone needs to make an effort to make sure it doesn't, that you know, the career can still go forward.
So the relevant moment is to make sure that the women can come back after the maternity leave.
That's one important
to really enable them to sort of hold their place for them and really get them back on board after they had their children.
I think that's right. I think that's absolutely one important thing to do. Because I have seen it happen, you know, women will take maternity leave and comes back and struggles to find her place again. You know, it's, and that doesn't happen with men. I mean, it doesn't because, firstly, you know, to the extent men even take paternity leave, and generally, I mean, it's so frowned upon that I think in most
Is that the case also in New York? It's frowned upon?
Yeah, it's frowned upon. I think it's frowned. I mean, you know, men do it, and I think men do it more now than when I had a kid. But I think it's viewed, you know, there is this sort of sense, what are you doing taking too long on this? It's still.
Did you take paternity leave when you had a kid?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
For how long?
It's a good question. I don't remember. Maybe about a month, you know.
Really? And that was frowned upon?
I didn't feel it was frowned upon, no. But even when I was on paternity leave, I worked from home, you know, a little bit.
Okay.
So it wasn't like I took a month off and, you know, didn't work. Yeah.
And you think it would benefit overall the equality in the workplace if men were more encouraged or felt that it wouldn't be frowned upon if they too took paternity leave?
Yes, I think it would. I think it would put people on an equal footing.
Is that something that men are actually wanting? But if you create a family, I mean, you make a conscious choice to have a family, and then you would want to benefit from that family that you have. And with women approaching sort of equality in salaries, men actually have the chance to not be just the providers, but to be at home also. Is that something men are wanting?
You know, I can't speak for all men.
You can't speak for all men.
And you know, I'm now sort of at a remove from what people are thinking now when it comes to that. My sense of it is that I think there's more of a move in that direction where I think men are demanding it more. And you know, I understand that in some countries in Europe, it's actually much more acceptable for men to do that than in the US.
So you practice, especially commercial arbitration, I understand, in New York. Can you tell us a little bit about that practice and that field, how it has developed, and what you see as the big challenges that lie ahead?
Well, you know, I practiced at a law firm for 32 years, and I left at the beginning of 2021, January 1st, 2021, to be a full-time arbitrator. What I have seen generally is a huge growth in the field. When I first started practicing law 30 years ago, there really wasn't really something called international arbitration. I mean, people did it for sure, but you know, it wasn't taught in law schools throughout the country the way it is now. There weren't departments in law firms that called themselves the International Arbitration Department, and all that has changed. However, what I've sensed is that the growth in the number of cases hasn't been commensurate with the growth by law firms. And I've found it to become quite a competitive field over the time I was involved in it. You know, it used to be that if you were pitching for counsel work, maybe it would be you and 2 other firms. Now it's you and 8 other firms often. So it's changed as a field from that point of view. In terms of arbitrator work, I mean, as I say, I've been doing this now for about a year as a full-time arbitrator. You know, it's been a bit of a transition, but there's a lot of work out there. I mean, I find I'm very busy, and much busier than I thought I would be when I first, decided to do this.
So January 21, that's almost your anniversary now.
Almost, exactly, exactly right, yeah.
And you're happy with the transition and
Yes.
enjoying the transition, I see.
I am happy with it. I mean, I think the most difficult part of it has been more than anything the result of the pandemic rather than anything else. One thing, I'm, not being at a law firm, I miss people, but frankly, if I was still at my former law firm, I would still not see people because, people really haven't started to go back to the office. What I have missed is, in-person arbitration events like this one. I mean, this is only the second one I've been to since the pandemic, the second in-person
Yes,
event.
I even came here to Miami for the ICC conference from Austria, so I too, I've missed that. You mentioned that international arbitration as a field is competitive. Now that you've raised so many talented young next generation arbitration stars, how do you feel you get people to be passionate about the field and stay motivated, even though it is competitive and it is long hours and it is really tough?
It's perhaps a little easier in the United States than in other countries because, getting involved in international arbitration always depends on what your alternative. What are you going to do if you don't do that? I mean, if I were talking to, 20-year-old like Timothy Chalamet, he's an actor. Okay, he's not going to choose international arbitration as opposed to being a movie star. But, talking to somebody who wants to enter the legal profession, I think there are so many benefits to being in the field of international arbitration that you just don't get generally. One is the ability to work with people from different cultures. If you're just generally a traditional domestic litigator, you don't do that. You don't have, your opposing lawyers are always going to be people from your jurisdiction. I've had arbitrations against people from all over the world, and I love that. I mean, I love the cross-cultural aspects of it. The other benefit of international arbitration, if your vision of being a lawyer is what you see on TV, being in court and cross-examining and giving opening statements, you are far more likely to do that in international arbitration than you are in US litigation. If that's your vision of a lawyer, is delivering an opening statement, cross-examining a witness, you're more likely to be able to do that in international arbitration.
When you look for talented people, what kind of skills do you think are important to being a successful arbitration practitioner?
When you are putting on a case in international arbitration, I mean, what you are is an advocate, right? You're an advocate. And you have to strategize about the best way to present the case, and then you have to present it. Right? And so that involves writing and oral advocacy and cross-examination. But it also involves, I think, having a personality, right? And actually being able to project that. And I think being likable is actually, in our field, in the field of international arbitration, is a very important skill because you are there persuading your arbitrators. It's a lot harder, it's a lot easier, let me put it this way, it's a lot easier to do if you're likable. And so, I think if you want to be successful in the field, I think you need to develop your writing skills. I think you need to develop your oral advocacy skills.
John, thank you so much for everything that you discussed and shared with us today. I'm really honored to have you here.
I'm honored, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you.